in advance. 1-408-418-9388. Enter meeting code 620-595-96908. Participants can make public comments only during an allotted time and will be removed from the meeting once public comment is over. Okay, at this time, I would like to do a roll call. I have Mr. Berg present, and then we have Mr. Stout. Is that you?
Present.
And then Freddie, you're here. Who else is here?
Present.
Please say your name out loud. I don't know. I can't see who's there.
This is Freddie Clayel Avalos, present.
Ms. Searles, are you there?
Laurie Searles, present.
Beautiful.
Here.
We have
Mr.
Ms.
Charles Taylor, present.
Jackie York.
Present.
We do have a quorum at this time. We'll move forward the meeting. At this time, can we stand and for the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance
Pledge
to
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Ms. Lucero did call and say she was not going to be able to make the meeting today.
Okay. Okay, public hearing on 2021-2022 proposed EPCAD budget. In order to comply with ensuring the efficiency of the public hearing agenda item, the EPCAD Board of Directors will limit said public comment to 5 minutes per item, unless the majority of a quorum of the board votes to allow more time for a given item. Public comment?
Mr. Chairman, before I bring that on, we did have somebody join by phone. Mr. Miller, is that you? We had someone else join by phone. Somebody just got dropped. Okay. Mr. Chairman, we do not have any public comments signed up to talk regarding the adoption of the budget.
Okay, beautiful. Approval and signing of minutes for March 18, 2021.
Move to approve the minutes.
I have motion by...
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Berg and a second by, Lori, was that you?
Yes, it was.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those
Aye.
opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Okay,
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, I need to clarify something. Not only did we not have anybody sign up for public comment on the budget, which is a separate public comment, we also had no one signed up for just general public comment. I needed to clarify that for the record.
beautiful. Thank you, Secretary, for clarifying that. Review and approve of financial reports 2021 and March 2021.
Good evening, Rosa Goldman, Chief Financial Officer. We are presenting the financial report for the months of February and March 2021. The financial report contains the balance sheet, a report of revenues, expenditures, and changes in cash balance, the investment report, and the note to the financial report. As you can see on the third page for February, under the note to the financial report, we have one account over budget, and it is the janitorial. It is $2,533 over budget due to deep sanitizing because of COVID-19. For the March 2021 financial report, same thing. On the third page, the note to the report states that we have still one account over budget, is the same one, janitorial, and the amount of our budget is $3,390, and is same reason due to deep sanitizing the building due to COVID-19. Are there any questions?
Board members, as clarification, when our budget was set last year, nothing extra was put into the budget for deep cleaning, and because of COVID, we are doing a lot more cleaning than normal. So you will continue to see this one line item over budget, but we do have funds, we have plenty of funds to be able to cover that overage. We're going to continue to keep this building heavily sanitized and cleaned due to COVID, so you will continue to see that.
Anybody have any questions?
Chair, I do have a chair, question. Are you comfortable that you're not going to go over budget on any other line item through this?
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
This is the only item that's going to go over budget, and we're okay with that.
Yes, sir.
yes.
Yes, sir. We're very
Do you need to
comfortable.
approve that you've gone over budget, or is it
No.
just
No.
approving this financial would be fine?
Right, you don't need to.
Okay,
Mr.
if there's
Chair,
any-
I move to approve, if there aren't any questions, the financial reports for February 21, 2021, and March 2021.
So I have a motion by Lori Swartz. Did I have a second? Second by Mr. Berg. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those
Aye.
opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, the next line item is discussion and possible action regarding banking depository.
Board members, I'm going to let Ms. Rosa Goldman discuss this with you. This is something that we do go out every 2 years to bid, and we get permission from the board to do that. Rosa, if you want to give them a little bit of a history on that.
Just based on the Texas code, we need to go out for bid every 4 years. So this is the year when we have to do it. The contract with the banking depository will be for 2 years, and then the board may extend it for 2 additional years. So 2 years ago, it was extended for 2 more years, so now we have to go to bid. Our current banking depository is Wells Fargo, and we are requesting permission to go for bid. We will request the bids during the summer, maybe the months of July and August. The contract will take effect with the new fiscal year, which is October 1st. And then we will present to you on the September meeting, the banks that
wins
bid, that submitted the bid.
Right, that wins the bid. And we will tell you, kind of give you a heads up, we usually only have one bank.
Yeah.
We're not real big. And the problem with us is we're not allowed to hold funds over. So anything goes back to the entity, so they know it's a very short-term depository. So we just need permission from the board to go ahead and start the process.
One more question. Do these
Yes.
banks charge, is this bank charging us any fees at all?
Yes, they are.
Yes. They all quote fees when we go out to
So
bid.
that's negotiable.
Yes, sir, it is. We do talk to them and get it down.
And so a bank that won't charge us fees is certainly preferable to one that does.
It is, but nobody really wants us. So I know, right? It sounds kind of funny, but right, because we are very short-term and we don't carry funds over, they get refunded back as a way of a credit to the taxing entities. Not a lot of the banking institutes want to
So what
invest.
were our cumulative fees for
What are they? I'm sorry?
a year, for any given year?
Fees.
The
How much are we
fees?
paying these banks?
How much is the bank charging us?
Yeah, just to
Right,
put our money in
right.
the
Well, it is, I want to say it is an average between 300 and 500 a month.
So between 3,500 to
Right.
$5,000.
It just depends
A
on.
month, 3,000?
No,
300.
100.
300
$3,500 to $5,000 a year.
a year.
more or less,
Okay.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, because it depends on how many checks we
They
should.
charge us per check?
Well, there is a charge per check, yes. I mean, the fees are different tiers, but.
And for deposit, I'm sure. They charge you for deposit.
Yes.
Right.
Because we do, entities pay into our budget quarterly. So once every quarter, we have large deposits that go in, and then we utilize those throughout the quarter. Then the next quarter, we have the large deposit. So it's a little bit different the way the appraisal district's finances were set up by tax code.
And we've always used Wells Fargo, is that the bank we've always used?
Not always, I think.
BBVA,
Chase, I think, at one
Chase,
point,
Westar, have we ever?
Westar has never,
they never submitted a bid.
we do send it out to all of the financial
And we
institutes.
put it on the newspaper.
And we put it in the newspaper, and we put it on our website.
And
So
when
it's
does
out
the
there.
decision have to be made now? Is it
Well,
already-
not now, right now, we just need permission to start the process, go out to bid. And then once we get all of that, it'll probably be either the August or September board meeting that will come to you with what we received and any recommendation or what.
Do you need a motion to begin the process?
Yes, sir.
So moved.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Berg. Do I have a second?
Second.
Ms. York, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Okay, the next line item is Human Resource Department presentation.
Yes, I'd like to introduce our Chief Human Resource Officer, Gabrielle Melendez. There was been a couple of questions from the board members regarding the service that we utilize to do our salary surveys. And so I wanted her to give you a little bit of background on who we use. And so she's going to give you just a brief presentation.
Good evening. My name is Gabrielle Melendez, Chief Human Resource Officer. As we all know, human capital is the most vital asset to any successful organization. At EPCAD, we feel no different, and we invest in human capital because we recognize the gains. There are numerous ways we accomplish this, and with the board's continued support, we will continue our efforts. During the 2014-2015 fiscal year, the appointed EPCAD Board of Directors requested salary comparisons from Human Resources outside of appraisal district access. At the time, compensation consulting firms were beyond the means for an appraisal district of our size. It was at an annual conference for HR that I found PayScale. We have been using PayScale since 2015. We launched in 2016. And PayScale offers compensation software with the most progressive, data-driven insights for employers and the employees alike. So they have more than 7,500 customers, from small businesses to Fortune 500 companies. Some of their customers include the Expedia, Hawaiian Airlines, the New York Times, the Washington Post, Wendy's, of course, smaller companies as well. And they use crowdsourced data to project their compensation information. So we've been successful in launching and maintaining our compensation data through PayScale. We've maintained our projects throughout the years, and we look to see when we need to update information, when we need to update salary schedules. We also look at our markets and make sure that we're benchmarked to the correct positions, and also, what labor markets we are matching these positions to. So we're continued our efforts with PayScale, and we're very happy with the information that we're provided, the metrics that we're able to use, and the strategies that we're able to go in and look at through PayScale.
One of the things we were able to accomplish with using this service is we were finding that employees would hit a max and that was it. There was nowhere else they could go. So working with them, they helped us create different tiers so that we could then further subdivide the staff into categories so they had some place to grow, some place to move up into after they hit a certain level. And this company helped us establish that. There's been a very good working relationship with them.
Are there any questions for me?
Have we done any comparables with other central appraisal districts to see that we're in line, say, with Dallas or?
Yes, sir. We normally had always reached out to other appraisal districts. Obviously, that is the best way to compare. But during that era of that board, they didn't necessarily want us to continue looking at other appraisal districts. So it was very difficult and very challenging to reach out to private sector. Private sector, guards their information. Public sector, of course, is very transparent, and so that's easy. But I can't find appraisers at a municipality or another county. So those things were very challenging. So using PayScale, as far as benchmarking the positions that we have, we're able to look at other positions that are in the real estate, market for specific positions. So we do have specific labor markets that we will map certain, jobs to. Accounting, HR, IT, those are core groups, so that's easy. We can find HR and IT and accounting anywhere in the world. But as far as finding specific appraisal, it's better to reach out to another appraisal district. So we do partner and we share information across the state.
Are you comfortable with that? 'Cause it's not like
Yes.
everybody's-
Well, I will tell you this. Initially, one of the reasons why the board challenged us to go outside is they didn't like that we kept coming in and telling them we were at the low end of the metro districts. So we said, okay, let's really look wider at similar fee appraisers, real estate appraisers, that type of thing. And then, like Gabrielle said, like your IT and your clerical that are real similar. And so we have that. And then, of course, we have the salary survey that the appraisal districts do put.
I don't want us to be at the low end, is where I'm going. So
Right.
is it possible to still do a comparison to see if we've risen above that?
We will after this year
Oh, you just
finalized.
started?
We go into the next fiscal year. They will be done with their budgets going into their next fiscal year, and then we'll be able to do a comparison.
We need not to be the lowest in the state or even in the industry.
I agree.
So I think we need to do a comparison in addition to this to
Yes.
benchmark our rise.
And we will, after everybody right now, to get any information from any appraisal district, they're going to tell me, yeah, right, we're in the middle of hearings.
Correct. Right.
So getting appraisal rolls turned over to the taxing entity, so that's kind of a priority. So once all this happens, then we'll be able to get that information, when we usually do at that time of year.
Thank you.
We did reach out to other appraisal districts, but we only got a response from one of them right now.
Big one like Dallas or Houston?
No.
Or like San Angelo?
Williamson responded. Williamson, and they're,
We'll wait until after
Yes.
we get past these
Yes.
hearings.
Yes.
All we want to do is, we're going to stay with your company. We're
no,
just going to do a
Of course.
comparison. to see-
absolutely.
Yeah, and we do,
Yes.
usually we get responses, and we look at, we'll look at Dallas and Houston on the high end, but then we look at Austin. Austin is really similar to us in the number of parcels. We look at Austin, we look at Denton, we look at Tyler, we look at Cameron, we look at Webb. I believe, Mr. Taylor, you've seen us when we've brought in those comparables in the past from the other appraisal districts. So we do that, but we'll just do it after the hearings are over and the appraisal rolls are turned over. That's, this time of year, that's our priority, is to get those hearings done and get the taxing entities their appraisal rolls. Okay.
Any other questions?
Any other questions? Okay, if there's no more questions, thank you so much for the
You're welcome.
presentation. Okay, now we're moving on to line item 7, discussion and possible action regarding the updatation of the EPCAD Board's 2021-2022 budget.
Yes, sir. We did publish on May 9th the numbers in the El Paso Times and the El Dario. We do it in English in the Times and in Spanish in the El Dario, so that we cover all of our community that we have here. We did publish an operating budget of $18,037,132.49. It's an increase of $2,004,345.96. We're leaving the number of employees the same at 141 employees. We did send to the board members. We had a board member that asked us to send you what it would look like for a 2, 3, 4, and 5%. We sent that to everybody. We went ahead and published at the 4. We cannot go up the percentage of 12.5% that was published. We can't go above that. We can go below. So that's why we picked that. Your original proposed budget was at a 10.05% increase. This budget, of course, like I said in the budget workshop, covers for things that we have put off purchasing, yearly flying. We are finding that the growth of El Paso really does substantiate that. We've already been looking at what was just flown last year and seeing a big difference. So we need to do that every year. The nice thing about that is we offer that to all of the other taxing entities, roads and bridges, MPO, 911. They do benefit from that service. So there were some expenses that we needed to cover. We're below on our cleaning, because of COVID, and we want to continue with that. We were able to turn over at the end of the year. And those of you that have received your financial statements from January, the new members that had it, you can see we did turn over $1 million. And I know a lot of people come back and say, well, if you turn that over, then take it out of the budget. Well, the reason we turn that over is because we have contingency money that we don't spend. We have overtime that we have to account for. We're not allowed to go in and change that budget. Once we set it, it's set. The only way to change that is to go to all taxing entities and have them pass a resolution. Majority of taxing entities, you're not going to get that done. And we wouldn't want to do that to them. They're setting their budgets. So we have to anticipate kind of worst case scenarios. We're going to have this year, we'll probably have about 15,000 more protests. We're already seeing a higher number of protests filed. We're about 25,000 right now. And we probably have about another 5,000 that need to be inputted into the system. So we'll be around 30,000 protests. So there are some issues coming up. We will foresee this in the next year. This budget is for the next fiscal year, but we foresee the same type of protesting going forward. So my comment to the board is don't punish us for doing due diligence. We are good managers of taxpayer funds. We will continue to be that way. We are not spendthrifts. I've got Scotch blood in me, so it's not going to go too far. But I would appreciate you thinking about approving the budget at what was posted in the paper.
Any questions? Okay, if there's no questions at this time, I would like a motion to approve the budget.
Move to approve the budget as posted.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Byrd.
I'll
Do I have a
second that.
second? Was that you, Lori?
It was me.
I have a second by Ms. Swirls. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All those opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, board members, for your faith in our staff.
Okay, next line
Thank you for
item.
your work.
Next line item is discussion and possible action regarding cancellation of the June 2021 and July 2021 Board of Directors meeting.
Board members, by state code, we have to meet once every quarter. So we meet 4 times a year is all that we have to meet. Because we do have so much that we take care of, we meet monthly. We historically do not meet the month of July because we are trying to certify a roll for the taxing entities to be able to set their tax rate. And we historically don't meet in December because trying to get everybody together at Christmas time is a little difficult. The last couple of years, last year we waited till the week before to cancel it. We have so many protests. This room that we're in right now, if you see the barriers along the wall, we break this into panel rooms. We have to break it into panel rooms to have enough rooms available to meet the public demand on the hearings. So we're asking, because we're already starting hearings with the public on June 5th this year, to hopefully be able to certify timely. We're starting early with hearings. So we won't be able to have a board meeting because we need to break this down and set it up for the panel rooms. It takes a couple of days to break down, and then it takes a couple of days to put back up. So we would lose close to 4 or 5 days worth of hearings if we had a June board meeting. What I would propose, which we've done in the past, Mr. Taylor, I know you remember this, and Ms. Searles, is I will send an update to all the board members in June and in July to let them know what's going on. We'll give them some financial information, anything that doesn't have to have a vote. We will send to the board members individually so that you'll have an idea of what is happening, how many protests we're having, what we're hearing. So I would really appreciate, we will still meet our quarters. We met January, February, March, so we met that quarter. And then we have April, May, and June. So this meeting right here in May, we meet this quarter. Then we have July, August, and September. We will have a meeting in August and September, so we'll meet that quarter. And then we have October, November, December, and we'll meet October, November, so we meet that. So we will meet our requirements under the tax code. So we won't put ourselves in any kind of penalty for canceling the June and July meetings. So we're asking permission from the board to do that.
Questions? This time, if there's no questions, can I get a motion?
Move to
I move
cancel.
to approve cancellation of June 21 and July 21 Board of Directors meetings.
Okay, so I have a first by Ms. Loris Wuerls and a second by Ms. York. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those
Aye.
opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, board members.
Okay, at this time, we have a report by the Wardlaw Appraisal Group.
Yes, board members, I would like to introduce Peggy Wardlaw and Mallory Crane. They are from the Wardlaw Associates. This is the company that the board has approved us to contract with that does the appraisals on our large industrial properties, the electric company, any of the gas plants that we have, of course, the refinery, and anything like that. And they normally come in 2-3 times a year to give a report to the board, but because of COVID, I finally conned them into coming. So they are here, so I'd like to introduce Ms. Wardlaw right now.
Thank you very much. You mind if I take my mask off?
No, go right ahead.
All right, I have been vaccinated, thank goodness. Boy, that was like, bravo. That was good for me. Very nice to meet you. I see we have a lot of new board members, and so I really appreciate the opportunity. Can you all hear me okay? To
Yes,
make a
ma'am.
short presentation to the board. What we do, we are hired by the appraisal district to do unusual and mostly high-value properties. So I'm just going to go over real briefly some of the properties we do. We do Union Pacific Railroad, Burlington Northern, Job Materials, El Paso Baking, Freeport McMoran, Vinton Steel, Toro, Helen of Troy, Valero Marketing, Azar Nut, Tony Lama, Western Refining, and the electric company, in addition to several hundred more companies. So the district has hired us. We have special expertise in terms of engineers, in terms of different appraisal disciplines to appraise these very unusual and high-value properties. Do we have well, everybody's got the presentation here. So on year one, I'm not going to read my PowerPoint presentation, but it's here for you to certainly look at. The first one goes over the tax years 2019, 2020, and 21. This year, we didn't receive quite as many renditions so far as we have in prior years. That's mostly because of timing, because what we're trying to do is get the notices out as quickly as possible. Taxpayers have 30 days to protest, then they have to be notified 15 days ahead of the hearing date. So we've got to get the notices out so that we have time to get those in, because these are big value properties and we need to get them on our certified roll. So because of the deadline for extended properties, we seem to have a lot more extended properties this year, companies, than we have in prior years. So, and the deadline was May 15th instead of April 15th. So for those properties, May 15th was on a Saturday, so it was the 17th, and they mailed them, and so there was a lag time. But we got those notices all out. So if you'll go to the second page, the 2021 Notices of Appraised Value, one of the things we were requested to do when we first got this contract in 2015 was to facilitate the staff at El Paso Appraisal District, make their jobs easier. And one of the things they requested was to get their notice values in smaller batches, because my understanding was that in the past they had gotten all whatever number of notice values all at the same time, which made it really hard for the staff to review those values, make sure they were correct, and get them in the system. So at their request, we have begun streamlining the process and sending the notices out in smaller batches, and it makes that clock run quicker. So a number of companies, their clock started around the 10th of April. We sent the notice values in on the 5th. A second round on the 16th, another on the 23rd, another on the 30th, and then all the rest of the notice values in on the 19th. which was well ahead of the schedule that the appraisal district had requested of us. And they seemed very pleased about having that opportunity to get those values in smaller batches.
Yes, we were.
Thank
And
you.
they were early. They were about a week early.
Is it all right to ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
On this page? So why was there really a $100 million reduction in the notice value between 2019 and 2020?
Let me look at that.
I mean, why? It seems, I mean, I'm in the business, everything's going up. Why did we have a reduction in the notice value of $100 million between 2019 and 2020?
Here we go. In 2019 to 2020,
Yeah, we went
$100
from
million.
3.98 billion to 3.88 billion as far as notice value.
Let me tell you what that probably had, what it had to do with. That is, we were requested by the appraisal district to keep the change from notice to certification at a smaller amount. As you can see, the actual certified value went up about 2%.
It did.
So what happens is, particularly, you have, as you're well aware, a lot of different jurisdictions and a lot of smaller school districts. And so what happened is, typically, when we make a notice value, particularly on companies that we haven't received the information that we need to do a correct value, because what we need are information from their FERC forms, we need information on their pipeline inventory, we need a lot of information that we haven't gotten by the 15th of May. So in order to send the notices out, you always want to send them out higher than you're going to wind up at. Right. So what we had in 2019 is we would have sent notices out, say on pipelines, where we're waiting on that information at 15 to 20% higher than prior year to cover ourselves. The district requested that we not have those large changes in value from notices to certification. So we are trying as much as possible to be responsive to the needs of the appraisal district and their smaller taxing entities. So in 2020, we took that into account, and maybe instead of making a 15 to 20% increase at notices on those types of properties that we haven't gotten the information, we maybe made a 10% increase and then settled at still a higher value than the prior year, but there wasn't that much of a decrease between the notice value and the certified value.
Variances.
That's correct, sir. Thank you.
But my question, I guess, is going to be, do we use the certified value from 1 year to determine the notice value for the second
No,
year?
sir.
No.
Don't, right?
No. Well, not exactly. We make a value. We make an appraised value. But a lot of times, we don't have the information to make
Right,
a proper
I got it.
appraised value at notices. In those particular instances, we do use the certified value for the notice value, just in those instances where we don't have the information because of what you said, because generally values are going up. So in that particular case, we'll use it for notices, knowing that once we get the correct value, we will then have a correct value for certification, which is what then the district will send to the entities.
If I may interrupt, Ms. Berg, one of the things we have to look at here is when we send out the preliminary roll in April, they're still doing their work because they have until mid-May. So we don't want to send out such a high number so that when we certify in July, it's a huge decrease. So we try to be a little more conservative so that especially a smaller entity doesn't have that much of a loss from preliminary to the certified in July, because we have to send out a preliminary roll by April 30th. And so when we know we still have properties that are out there, we will look at the prior certified and look to see we'll have to estimate what are we looking at in the way of potential growth for different ones. You do have a Border Steel that is not doing what it used to do. So those are the kinds of things we have to take. And of course, you have something like the refinery that you don't want to overplace a value. Now, another thing that may show up on this is we've been really lucky with the new owners of Marathon Oil and been able to come to an agreement pre-notice. So they're noticed on, we have a waiver and agreement so that it doesn't even show up in the notice value.
So that may be why you have a reduction between 2020 and 2021?
Yes, sir.
Because you've already settled with them and you
Yes,
already
sir.
know what that'll be.
That's correct.
And that's a large user anyway.
Right,
So
right. And we did, and we were very lucky again, and in my report, I'll go over it. We were able to do, with Ms. Wardlaw's assistance, we were able to do that again for this year, for 2021.
is it possible to do that with other large entities?
If they would be willing, we would like
Obviously,
to.
Marathon
but-
was willing.
And we do try to do that. We reach out to like El Paso Electric, the Western Refining, and we've not been successful with El Paso Electric because the first thing we have to do, we have to get the information. We have to get the information from the company as to whether they've added new assets, and we get that sometimes from our inspections. But on these larger things like the electric company, we can't see how many meters they've added or how many power lines they've added. An inspection, we go to the power plants every year, so we know that. But until their FERC reports are filed, we don't have the information as to overall what kind of increase they've had in their capital expenses or their net plant.
So I guess what I'm anticipating is the variance between the 3.878 billion that you've noticed in 2021
Right.
and the certified value will be less than it was in 2020, and your certified value should exceed 3.725 billion because you've already settled with Marathon.
It could well,
So the answer
yes.
is, we should see a closer gap.
Right. We
Yes,
may
sir.
not see much of an increase because remember, a lot of things were closed down. Their manufacturing, because of COVID, was at a lesser amount, but we should see some, but
Just
it
want
may
to reduce the
be
gap between the
closer.
certified and the notice.
We
Oh,
do too.
yes.
I know you do.
When
Yeah,
we,
our oil, remember the oil inventory, David reminded me about oil inventories dropping a lot. We're seeing that now, so I would like to say, in a normal time period, yes, I would say we would see an increase over the certified, but in this year, we're not sure how that's going to play out. We're hoping that we will see overall an increase, but it may not be as much as we've had in the past. But
We'll have to wait and see.
We'll see how it plays out. But yes, our largest one is done.
done. And one of the things about oil that's really important is some of the larger values, not Western and El Paso Electric, but still in the tens of millions of dollars, is oil inventory. And what we've seen already is that a few of those have just gone from 30 million to zero because they didn't have inventory this year. And the inventory that there was at a much lower value because the wholesale price of crude was lower. So, okay.
Any other questions? Thank you so much for that
Okay.
report.
Well, I'm not finished.
Oh, sorry.
There's a couple of pages, that was
I think they're telling you,
Silence there, so I figured.
Okay, well, I'll hurry up.
No, you're
So
fine, you're fine.
on page 4, it just shows the list of certified values by tax years. And this kind of gives you an idea about where values have been going. Our first year was 2015, and CAG is the prior group that did this. But you can see that the first year we did it, there was a $574 million increase, or about a 20% increase, a little bit over a 20% increase in value. And for most of the years since then, we've had smaller increases in value since that time. So then on inspection documentation, the next page. And I'm trying to go fast, so you can interrupt me if you want to. So this is a little bit of the COVID thing. Normally, we have at least 3 or 4 appraisers coming to El Paso for days and weeks at a time doing in-person inspections. This year, there was a real problem because a lot of the places we inspected are manufacturing facilities, and they wouldn't let us go in. It was strictly just the personnel that have to be there to do those inspections. So we developed a procedure to do virtual inspections where we set up just like we normally do, we set up an appointment time, but it was a virtual inspection instead of an on-site inspection. So, and we talked to the plant managers and the owners and so forth, and when allowed, did audio and video recordings of the facilities. So, and actually, the next one kind of explains the COVID compliant inspection protocol that we developed to do those inspections in El Paso this year. Hopefully, this next year, we'll get to start the inspections and do them in person again. We generally start inspections in October and November because it takes a long time to get these inspections scheduled, because we have to schedule them both with the tax rep and with the company. And so it takes quite a bit of time to get these inspections scheduled, and they'll say, no, we can't do this, we can't do that, we can't do that. So we try to schedule them out over a period of time to finish those inspections. So on page 7, our number one priority is customer service, both to the appraisal district and the taxpayers. So we try as hard as we possibly can to respond within a day to any phone calls, to any requests for information, and to anything that is requested of us. And so that's been a big point of what we do. Also, we have a phone system where people can call us. They have both our cell phone numbers and our office numbers. So we get during this time of year, we get a lot of taxpayer calls that just call us up directly and want to give us, talk to us about their values. And so we're very open and willing to take those phone calls as they come in and make those answers as the people call in. And also we schedule a lot of appointments with the different taxpayers and so forth, both by telephone and in person, to get the values resolved. Then one thing that came up this year had to do with the property value study. The property value study is conducted every other year by the state. And the purpose is to look at the values in particular appraisal districts, and the state does evaluation on different types of properties to make sure that the appraisal district is properly appraising properties. And if they're not, the school districts can lose school funding. So it's really important for the school districts, for an appraisal district, to be in compliance with this property value study. In the past, everything has been really good. This year, we got a call from the appraisal district, and we had seen it ourselves, that there was, that one of our properties was out of compliance. We immediately got on the phone, we contacted the state, we talked to them, we explained, we filed the paperwork with the El Paso County Appraisal District. We filed the information that the state needed to change that appraisal to make that correct. And we were able then to bring, along with the appraisal district and the information they provided on their properties, to bring, it was El Paso ISD into compliance for their school funding.
And just to follow up on that, just on the J category, which is the utility category that Ms. Wardlaw is talking about, the state put a ratio of 0.77, almost 0.78%, 78%, which is extremely lower than it's ever been before. So with all of the work that Wardlaw Appraisal was able to give us and work with the state comptrollers, they got it up to 94.76%. So we had very little that we had to do then to get it over 95. It was all in that utility. So it was, it took a while, but they were able to get that up for us.
The state just really goofed on that, and it was not in compliance with IAAO appraisal standards, which is what we're all required to use. So we utilize IAA standard appraisal practices for our appraisal, and once it was brought to our attention that the state had come up with this, I want to say outrageous,
A different methodology.
a very different methodology. We provided information that they were actually out of compliance with the IAAO standards. IAAO is the International Organization of Appraising Officers, and that and they agreed with us with our methodology, and then changed the ratio. So the two biggies here are El Paso Electric and Western Refining. So in 2020, we worked closely with them and came to a value agreement with an increase of 8.5%. on the overall El Paso electric value. And in 2021, we are trying really hard. We've had a really difficult time getting information. Of course, I guess you all know they sold to a private investor group this last year. And so we are still waiting to get information both on the entity allocation. In other words, how much they've added in different entities. And there are, I think, aren't there like 21 or 22 different combinations of entities between school districts and the city and the different other smaller taxing entities? So both on the allocation between these entities and then overall how much the company is worth to be allocated to those different entities. And we expect to reach an agreement, but so far we haven't gotten the information. So for 2020, we worked closely with Western, and they had been bought out by Marathon. There had been an ongoing lawsuit, not up until 2020, until about 4 years ago, there was an ongoing lawsuit over valuation. I believe that the taxing entities had to do a refund. Is that correct, Dinah?
Yes.
They had to do a rather large refund because of the way it had been handled. For 2020 and 19 and 18, we were able to reach an agreement with them with an increase in value. And we actually settled those before notices, and it was a value of over $500 million in 2020. In 2021, I guess y'all heard nobody was driving, nobody was flying airplanes, the price of crude oil was really bad, and all of our metrics on the refiner showed that the value of the refinery would be down significantly for 2021. We started getting information back in January, making communication with Marathon. They have an ongoing lawsuit over their refinery value in Galveston. But we were able to work with them and talk with them. The value of their crude oil inventory was down because it's just math. The value of crude was down, so the value of the inventory they had in their tanks out there was down significantly. But we were able to reach an agreement with only a 10% reduction on the refinery value, which was a good settlement, and it completely avoids any litigation cost or anything for the district, and provides your entities with a fixed amount of certified value so that they can set their tax rates. And so,
Does your company also work with refineries in Houston?
no, we don't.
My question is that concurrent with the reduction of values throughout the state?
I do not know where they are in Houston with those refineries. A lot of those have not been settled.
There's still lawsuits pending.
There's still lawsuits, as well as they haven't gotten a settlement. We have been shown, we have looked at, we actually have for the last 6 or 7 years, information on the value of the refineries per EDC, which is a measurement of the capability of the complexity and the capability of the refinery. The Western Refining has been, on that basis, the next to the highest valued refinery in the state of Texas. And we've been able to maintain that without a lawsuit over the last 4 years. So.
Hi,
Any
this is
questions?
Freddie. I'm calling in. I have a question about the refinery not giving you information. Is there a deadline by which they're supposed to give you their information by?
We actually got the information from the refinery before we settled the value. We haven't gotten information from mostly is the pipelines and the electric company. The electric company has really provided us very, very little information upon which to value their company. But the refinery was very helpful. They provide a lot of information. There's some public information out there that we were able to obtain. And so using that information, that's how we were able to get the value on on the refinery.
Okay, and
Mr.
then
Avalos?
the electric company, I mean, is there, yes, go ahead, ma'am.
Oh, okay. There is really no deadline for them to give us any information. There's nothing in the tax code that forces or requires them to give us information. Well, we will estimate a number based on the publications and the information that Wardlaw and Associates was able to come up with, and we did send them a notice. They can have their hearing with the appraiser or with the ARB, and they still do not have to present any information until a lawsuit is potentially filed. So your answer is there a deadline for them to give us their information? No.
There really isn't, and so, sorry.
Go ahead, sir.
Go ahead. No, I mean, I was going to ask, at which point do we consider a lawsuit?
So that kind of goes back to your question about notices. So our only way to kind of obtain information is to give a value at notices that they think is too high. And so, and certainly if using the publicly available information we have in conjunction with the appraisal district, we look at whether we think we can substantiate a value in a lawsuit. And we are open to that, but it's a balancing act.
And the lawsuit is not filed until after they have their formal appraisal review board hearing, and then they have 60 days in which to file a lawsuit. We have 15 days in which to file an intent to sue if we feel the value is not right. We can file an intent to sue, and then we come back to the board at the next board meeting, and we will talk to the board to see if they want us to go ahead and file the lawsuit and go forward. And that's when we bring in Mr. Longoria. And Joe, if you would like to address that a little bit more for Mr. Avalos.
Sure. I think everybody is talking here about the lawsuit. When you're speaking about it, most people traditionally think about a lawsuit filed against the appraisal district. And of course, the appraisal district has no control over that. Whether a party decides to choose to file a suit is up to that party. What Ms. Kilgore is referring to is the situation where the appraisal district can sue a property owner and the appraisal district would be the plaintiff. That would require a few more steps than a property owner simply deciding to file suit. And that the parties under both circumstances would have to exhaust administrative remedies. And that means going through the administrative portion, having a hearing, having orders issued. When orders are issued, if the appraisal district is going to file suit, they have to basically send out a notice of an intent to the property owner to file suit. And then the board has to approve filing that suit against that property owner. There's some value limitations as to which property owners can be sued. That doesn't apply for a property the size of a refinery or of El Paso Electric. But in that particular case, if the appraisal district were to file suit, they would be plaintiff. And they would have the burden of proof on market value and on equity, and they would be able to file, rather to drive the suit. We've done that in the past here for other properties, and that is an option that the appraisal district has. I always caution boards that when you're deciding which property to sue upon, the way to look at it is you're actually suing one of your taxpayers. Right. And that's something that needs to be, certainly taken in consideration when that decision is made.
Did that answer your question, Mr. Avalos?
Okay. It does, and I just want the other board members to be aware of that, that's something that might have to happen potentially if they're not going to give us information. So I just want to earmark that as something that we should be looking at closely in the next couple of months.
Correct. I would say if that turns out to be a situation, then we would come to the board at our August meeting with that kind of information. We would bring Mr. Longoria in to discuss an executive session options.
So do we know, this is Commissioner Stout, sorry.
No, what is the reason for not giving us information? Or have they just like stonewalled you or?
Well, they don't have to. That's
Well-
the reason. They don't have to.
And it's hard to say because they have a tax rep that changed about 3 or 4 years ago. And the tax rep claims that the company's failing to provide information to them.
Their own
So,
tax rep is saying that.
yeah, that's what the tax rep is saying. The company just doesn't speak to us. We're at the inspection, and so I know them. They walk through with us. They just don't talk to me once we start doing the appraisals. Now, what we did about 3 years ago, there is a FERC report, Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, that's required to be filed by electric utilities. So what we did, we just took that FERC report apart and we broke it into generation and the cost of the generation. We broke it into substations, the cost of substations, broke transmission out, we broke distribution out, and we valued each little part of that. One of the things they own part of a big nuclear facility in Arizona. And they also have property in New Mexico. So using the FERC report, we can value the company as a whole, but how much of that should be in El Paso? So that's what we did about 3 years ago. We said, well, if you won't provide it to us, we're just going to take this report. We're going to assume that, 95% of the distribution is in El Paso County, and we know about generation because they have to say all their generating plants. So we took the generation out. We said, okay, this much generation is in El Paso. This is the value of the generation. 95% of all the distribution we're going to assume is in El Paso. And we ran an appraisal. And that's what we've done the last 3 years. We have run an appraisal just based on our own data. And we took the substations and we said, okay, these substations are in, and we looked them all up on Google Maps and said, okay, these substations are here and these substations are there. And there's actually still a substation on their FERC report that they claim they don't own. And I said, well, too bad. It's,
So did they challenge?
They challenged it, but finally they agreed to it. I mean.
We settled it based on your
So,
numbers.
yeah, we
Closest
settled
could.
it based on our appraisal. And, there was a little bit of back and forth. But if they don't have information, they're on pretty weak ground there.
Right.
So that's what we've done the last 3 years. We've pretty much based it on our analysis and then some allocation numbers to the different entities based on prior year values.
Do you think you're too low?
I think we're pretty close to right. Okay. I mean, I think we've got a pretty good value on it. And we do know how much they've invested every year. So if they've invested that much, then hey, your value ought to be going up, at least in proportion to the amount that you've invested. And we have that information. So that's what we're going on. But the company itself really hasn't given us very much information. But
Peggy,
that's
why
what we
don't they
did.
have to? Why, do we don't have any authority over
The
that?
only thing the code requires is that they give us an inspection. Is that correct, Dinah?
Yes. The only thing that's required under the code is they have to give us access. Now, they can make it at their convenience.
Right.
But for a business, a residential does not have to give us access, but a commercial property does have to give access. They have to render their personal property, but a lot of folks won't. What the penalty is for that is a 10% penalty for not rendering. If they render a false rendition, then that's a falsifying of documentation. So that's a little bit different. So a lot of them will not render and they'll just pay the 10% penalty. It's one of those issues where we try to be at a value we feel like is defendable and fair based on the information we have. We can't just arbitrarily throw a number on there because that's against USPEP standards and against, the tax code. So we're kind of a rock and hard place. We hope that with the notice going out, with the research that the appraisal firm used, Peggy and her folks did, that it will, when they get the notice, it'll open their eyes and go, okay, now we need to talk to them and we need to visit
Now
with
they
them and we
give you
need to.
information.
Right, exactly.
prove
So
that it's down.
we were lucky last year that happened and the year before, so we were able to do that. But sometimes it takes going through the process before we do get information. Now, the only time that we can I don't want to say force, that's kind of a rough word, but we can require the information is once a lawsuit is filed by the property owner or by us, then through the attorneys through discovery, then we can request the information at that time, and they have to give it. But that's the only time that they actually are required to. Right, Joe? Right, Mr. Longoria?
Yeah, the
Más o menos?
más o menos, yes. The only other option, and the general response is, in terms of why do companies, and it's not just El Paso Electric, it's all companies, big or small, there's really no
Yes.
obligation upon them set in the code that requires them to produce information. They are required to provide the inspection. The rendition statute has a penalty, but a rendition statute can be complied with by simply submitting a, here's my opinion of value, and they've complied with the statute. And it could be a $20 million property where somebody says, I think it's worth $5 million. They've complied with the statute. The only other option that the appraisal district has, other than discovery and full-blown litigation, is to request the issuance of a subpoena at the administrative level by the appraisal review board. And this district has done that in the past. It is very time-consuming. It is very cumbersome, but that is the only other way that you can require a property owner to produce information. The timeframes on that are, in many instances, exceed the timeframes of a protest period.
Well, you have to convince a judge to issue this.
You don't have to convince the judge, the operation of it. You convince the ARB that there's sufficient good cause to issue the subpoena. Subpoena is issued, you serve it on the property owner. This property owner either one of three things: complies, drops the protest, or objects to that, and you wind up in litigation seeking to enforce the subpoena, or in litigation seeking to have the subpoena quashed. So it is
Goes
fairly
through,
cumbersome.
and at that point, it's before a judge.
At that point, you
We
get
have
before a district judge.
tried it,
Done
and
that?
it doesn't work.
We've done it here.
We have done it here, and
It's
cost us a
pain.
lot of money, and we got no information.
Right, I don't think.
And I was going to say that too. We've been in business 35 years, and we've been involved in multiple lawsuits. And my experience is, you have a request for discovery, you have depositions, and you really wind up spending so much on lawyers and get very little information. I mean, 35 years ago, I thought, oh, we'll go in and then they'll give it. No, they don't. They just don't give you the information even after you get into a lawsuit.
But we put up the big fight, and we have numbers that we're comfortable with, so.
Yeah, so, and we've tried, but we always try to make the balance. We try to make the balance of, is this a value that I can defend in court if I have to? But also, after I reach that value, then appraisers, legitimately, appraisers can disagree about a value. And so even if I can defend it in court, is it worth the difference, maybe 5% or something? I mean, I don't know, just of going to court with it. So
It's an estimation of value based on the best information we have
Right.
available, and they may have better information than we have.
that's
so
right.
that's
So
pretty- Commissioner Stout, did that answer your question?
Yes, I guess. Doesn't seem very fair to me. It's,
No.
It is not.
I agree.
it's not, and we are at a disadvantage, and we're at a disadvantage in a lawsuit because if the district loses, they have to pay the taxpayers' fees. But if the taxpayer loses, they don't have to pay the district's fees. And so the whole thing is not fair.
Plus, as you said, we're going after a taxpayer. I mean,
Yeah.
it doesn't look good.
No.
But-
It is what it is.
But I
This
feel-
is how we have to operate.
That's how we have to operate. And my thing is, and I feel very strongly about this, that if we don't appraise these larger value properties at an accurate, fair value, who picks up the slacks? It's the homeowners,
or the
it's the
little
local
guys, right.
businesses, it's the smaller people that can least afford to pay. So that's been my passion in this, honestly. That's why I've stayed in this business all this time, because I believe that's really true, that it's our job to enforce the tax code to the best of our experience and our expertise so that the big value taxpayers pay their fair share of the taxes. So.
And
that's
you know,
my little-
unless y'all have more questions for Ms. Wardlaw, this is a perfect segue to our litigation report.
Thank you.
Well,
Mr. Molina.
kudos to you, and I don't know how you haven't gone insane, but, after, I'm glad to see you're so passionate still.
Thank you.
We are, we're crazy in this business.
Anybody has any more questions?
I have a quick question. This is Freddie.
Thank you.
If I leave the meeting, do we still have quorum?
Yes, sir, we do. In fact,
I'm sorry that I have to leave the
Mr.
meeting.
Avalos, I'm gonna ask Mr. Mena to do another roll call without you to see, make sure we do have quorum.
Okay, do you want me to hang out until the very end of that roll call?
Yes, sir, if you would. Mr. Mena, if you'll do a roll call right now.
At this time, I would like to do a roll call.
Tanny Berg, I'm here.
Jackie York.
Laurie Searles.
Commissioner
Dave
Stout
Stout.
and Freddie Avalos and
He's
myself.
leaving.
We have quorum.
So without Freddie, you still have quorum.
Mr. Avalos, we do have quorum without you.
Okay, I apologize,
Freddie.
guys. I have to pick up my kid on the other side of town, but I appreciate the information, and thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Okay, at this time, we need the report on settled lawsuits.
And y'all have met and have heard before from Mr. Molina, Albert Molina, and he's going to give you an update. You should have received everything in your packet regarding those, so if you have any questions. I do want you to know, currently, normally we're around 4% of the appraisal roll that is under litigation. Currently, without any of the new stuff being added in, we're already at 9.75%. So we're right under 10% of the appraisal roll under litigation right now, and we're anticipating that to go up, of course, after this season. So, Mr. Molina, I'm sorry. I didn't-
Good evening. I'm Albert Molina. I'm the Director of Litigation and Appeals here at the Appraisal District. And also Eddie Perez is the manager of the department there. In the department, we have 5 appraisers that basically will analyze these lawsuits and then go to mediation or settlements and try to settle for a fair value. You should have gotten a report like this. It says litigation report. Oh, I'm sorry. If you look at that, for the last, 2015 to 2019, we would average around 300 lawsuits a year. This past year in 2020, we had 648 lawsuits that were filed. And for 2021, we're going to be about the same number, maybe a little bit higher. So out of those, like I said, since 2015, was 2157 lawsuits filed. Of those, we've settled. There's still 661 that are pending, that are out there. It should be a form like this. I'm sorry.
It would say April 2021 litigation arbitration report.
Okay. And out of those that are still pending, we have $4.5 million that is under litigation. $1 billion, I'm sorry. Okay. And if you're on the second page, the top table is concerning mediations. In this past year, we've had 368 parcels that we've gone to mediation to try to settle. Not all of these are settled, but we try our best, I guess. And because the courts have basically shut down, and we're having to, a lot of the cases were not going to be heard until 2022. So we're trying to settle as much as we can through settlements and mediations. As you can see on the next 3 tables, it's our cost, attorney's fees. If you look at for 18-19, we had about $500,000 in attorney's fees. For 19-20, it was about the same. This year, 2021, we're only 6 months into it, and we're already at $400,000, right? So I expect that by the end of the year, we'll probably be closer to $1 million in attorney's fees.
Mr. Molina, question. Are we gonna go over our budget on attorney's fees?
We have, what is it, the
An encumbered,
contingency fund?
yeah.
And encumbered.
We have an encumbered fund right now. We're not able to put in any monies because we didn't have a meeting in September of overage, but we do have 400.
$429,800.
Because if we're at 438,000 and we're only 6 months into it, not even 6 months into it, we're gonna be over $1 million, I think.
Right. Now, we do have,
Close, pretty close.
in our line item, we have 500,000.
Right.
Plus, we have the 400, so we're right under $1 million. Now, we also have a contingency, which is 10% of the operating expenses, that we can go to the board and ask permission to take monies out of that contingency to help offset some of the attorney's fees. Now, what's going to be happening this summer, we won't get all of that started settled or those dollars spent until after our budget goes into effect. So we'll be able to come to the board in August. We'll have a fairly good estimate of what monies we will not be spending, and we'll be able to ask the board to shore up that encumbered fund, that legal encumbered fund a little bit, add a little bit more to that. And we also increased our line item this year. So if you look in the budget, that line item for litigation was beefed up a little bit. I think it was increased by 150. We're at, I'd have to look.
It's like it's $680,000, right?
Okay, yeah, so we've got it up to six. Yeah, so we have it up to 600. So we have, for going into October 1, we have that over 600,000, plus we have the 438. So, well, hopefully we'll have more than that, because we'll have to refill what we've spent and then have more. We're trying to have overall, my goal is to have about $1 million, $1.5 million available at any time so that we can continue to do this. It's become a very lucrative business for the other side to file lawsuits. And with so many of them, as you saw on that first page, over 2,000 lawsuits, we're not going to be able to go to court on those. We're going to have to settle, which means we have to do that through mediation. And mediation is about $2,000 a day. That comes from us, and it also $2,000 a day from the other side. But the courts, especially now, are basically requiring a mediation. And I believe there's a section in the tax code now that says also that we have to do a mediation if requested by the other side. So that's becoming a big budget item for appraisal districts, not just here, but throughout the state. Okay, I'm sorry, Mr. Molina, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
It was a concern that I had, sorry. Go ahead.
Just one more question before you start up again real quick. So I mean, I know we just approved the budget, but I mean, is there like analysis, like a cost benefit analysis we've ever done, like on how many, like, how much we spent on legal fees as opposed, in its relationship to how much we've actually been able to like get back from some of those protests or from some of those lawsuits and just to
It's kind of, Commissioner Sal, it's kind of hard to do an analysis because the value will always be lower than the certified. The value will always be lower than what the A or B set, because that's what that's why they file, is to get lower than what the A or B set was. So we will always be spending more than, what we try to do is we try to look at the least amount of damage, I guess for lack of a better word, to a tax roll. So hoping to try to hold the tax roll so they don't lose so much money in either refunds, or if it's going to cost us more, we do look at it that way, Commissioner Stout. What is it costing us for attorneys and mediations based on what are they going to generate in the way of tax dollars? And if they're going to generate less tax dollars, then we're going to stop the process right there and agree to a number, because we don't want to spend more money than tax dollars we're generating. So we do look at that, and that's one of the criteria that Albert's staff has. If it's a matter of law, we're going to have to do that. But if it's just a matter of value, we will look at that, okay, the tax rate applied to what they're asking for versus what we can agree to is still an increase in taxes over what we're spending. But if it's going to be less, you're going to be getting less than what we're spending, we're going to try and stop that. We're going to stop that bleed so that we don't spend more in litigation costs than what the actual tax would generate. Did that kind of answer a little bit?
Thank you.
If I can make one comment with regard to the fees, I'm looking over these fees. I believe what you are looking at on these breakouts for attorneys' fees, those amounts, in particular from the law firms, those are inclusive of experts also.
Yes.
They include outside experts.
That and also, I mean, you're looking at, what is it, 600 or almost over 1,000 lawsuits within a year.
Right.
And you have to answer, whatever request the other side asks for. So that adds to the fee.
The most expensive thing in this, for example, one of these cases, there's a six-figure amount in November. That included numerous expert reports that are, technically speaking, are not attorney's fees. Those are outside experts that have been retained to come here and do appraisals on the properties. And just as a general rule, outside experts are more expensive. They're usually the most expensive part of litigation. The hourly rates for outside experts that we are utilizing range between $400 to $500 an hour. The hourly rates for the experts that opposing counsel is using is usually in the same range. So they are very, very expensive. Their expertise is highly sought after. But I did want to point that out, that when you're looking at these numbers, it's not just attorney's fees. It's inclusive of costs such as depositions, court reporters, and
Answering the,
that's a legal fee. We answer a lawsuit, but costs that we turn around and we pay to the outside experts are also in there.
Yeah, but it all comes out of the same line.
All
comes out of our same line item in our
Right,
budget,
yeah.
yes, yeah.
That's right.
And
It does.
I think for the new board members, this is kind of historical information. Back when the refinery sued us every year, we were getting ready to go to court on the last one when Endeavor bought, or now Marathon, but before that it was Endeavor bought the refinery, from Western Refinery. And at that time, we had spent, it was 2 years, I believe, 2 or 3 years that were under litigation, and they were suing under market and equity. And those reports were about $100,000 each. So those reports will add up, and it comes out of that same line item. But that's why we do look at, are we going to get something, is it worth spending that money and taking those kinds of risks if the entities are going to at least come out with not getting less tax revenue? They're going to get less tax revenue, then we're going to stop the bleed and we're going to agree and we're going to move on to the next thing. And you're going to have to see that a lot with over 2,000 lawsuits. You're going to see that more often. So we do look at a cost-based analysis when it comes to that part of it. What is the taxing entity going to lose? So I'm sorry. Albert, go ahead.
No, okay. On the last page, on page 4, besides dealing with lawsuits and stuff, the taxpayer can also file for arbitration or binding arbitration to settle the. And as you can see, for the 15 through 18, we were averaging about 100 arbitrations a year. Then for 19 and 20, I mean, we're close to 300 per year. Again, for this coming year, I expect the number to be maybe a little bit higher than that. And of those, the ones for 2020, we have we had a total of 283. We have 35 that are still pending, And of course, we have to do the same, go through and do an analysis of the information that is given to us. It's, we have the same problem Peggy has. We don't get cost or income or expenses, so the appraisers have to appraise the property as best they can using market information. When they file they go to the ARB, they might present that information, they might not. When they come for lawsuits, then we try to get that information out of them. Sometimes they will, sometimes they won't. So it's like a tug of war. We're trying to pulling teeth, right? We're trying to pull that.
The problem really isn't the additional arbitrations. I think the problem is the value loss is spiked so tremendously.
Like I said, a lot of times we don't have the information when we first set the value, when the appraisal district sets the value. So when they come to arbitration or they come to litigation, they present that information, and our appraisers have to analyze it to see if that's fair value or not. So that's where we end up losing a lot of this.
So would you say that value loss can be assessed of 10 in other words, if you took the 10 top arbitrations, would they pretty much chunk 70% of that?
On arbitrations, basically, it's like court. They present their case, we present our case.
Yeah,
the arbitrator decides.
But my question is, look, you were tracking 3 million, 7 million, 5 million, but at that time you had 100 arbitrations. Now you're up to 300 arbitrations.
Right.
So but if I take 3 times 5, you only got 15, and you're up to 22. So there must have been 2 or 3 or 5 or maybe even 10 huge arbitration reductions.
Used to be, if it was a value less than $1 million, they could arbitrate. The legislature bumped it up to $5 million. So so some of the people can that have a $5 million property can come in and do arbitration now.
It's just that loss to the entities is huge.
Yes, sir,
I mean, to
it
take
is.
a $25 million hit, if I'm a school district, if I'm a county commissioner,
Yes, sir.
that's a major hit.
That's where Mr. Stone and I come in every year when we're talking about the preliminary roll, and we talk to all the entities, reminding them, giving them some historical information. And then as we get ready to release the certified roll in July 25th, Mr. Stone and I will get on the phone to those entities that may be affected and give them a heads up. We try to, if we still have a lot of those that may be out there, when we certify, some appraisal districts certify the actual number. Some appraisal districts will certify removing a likely rendered for anything that's still pending. And we've talked to our entities and they've asked us to continue to do that. So we'll come up with a percentage that we feel is still pending, so that hopefully within a year's time, they haven't lost much, they haven't gone below what we originally certified. So we do work with them on that.
I think it'd be really helpful if you could maybe isolate maybe the 10 top arbitrations. It would just be comforting to know that taking those 10 out, that the rest aren't quite so profound, especially if I'm an entity and dependent on the money. So it would just be very comforting to know that there were such huge ones that jack that number way up.
Well, the most they can do is 5 million.
I know.
So that's the highest that under arbitration that they're allowed to have a value issue on. Where the big values are, of course, are in the lawsuits.
Right.
Yeah, and we have some little ones too. And we have some lawsuits where they want us to go up on their value, that we have to go to
They're
court.
fighting
So-
us to go up on their value.
Yes, yeah. So we get it,
Not
it
too
all.
often. You don't
We
get
get it
that
all.
No.
Okay. Mr. Molina, was
Thank
there
you very
anything
much,
else?
Ms. Molina.
Yeah, you also should receive 2 spreadsheets like this. These are actual lawsuits that were settled during mediation. If you look at column F, that tells you what school district that property is in. Column G will give you a little bit of a description as to what type of property it is, whether it's apartments, warehouse, land. And then column N give you the value loss for those settlements. And of course, Q is the taxes loss on those items. And again, it's the same, like I said before, when the property is first appraised or goes to ARB, we might not get the actual income and expense. And in mediation, we try, but they don't have to provide you that information when you're in mediation. It's mostly just a negotiation, basically, to try to get the best value you can. We ask for that information when we're there. So, and like I said, this is the best. I mean, we've done pretty good, I think.
No, I think your staff has done very well. Thank you. They're amazing. Our litigation staff is amazing, based on what little data they have.
Yeah. So in March, if you look at the last page, page 4 at the bottom, on column Q, out of all the lost, I mean, all the properties that we dealt with, we lost $1,345,000 in taxes.
Amazing.
And then for April, which is the other spreadsheet, same thing. It's $1,133,000 in taxes.
That's how much we lost in value?
In taxes, actual money, taxes.
Wow.
That's for all the taxing entities that were involved. That's a total.
But if you look at how many there are, that's not that bad.
Right, right.
I'd say that's a pretty.
If you split it up by the number of
Yeah.
accounts.
Thank you, Mr. Melendez.
I guess if you have any questions.
Is there any more questions, guys? No?
No, sir.
Alrighty, moving right along. The next report is the taxpayer liaison report.
And all of y'all know Miss Tracy Carter.
Good evening, Tracy Carter, Taxpayer Liaison. I wanted to give you all a report on the Appraisal Review Board. The ARB adopted their 2020 Rules and Procedures February 17th, 2021. And due to the COVID-19, the State Comptroller ARB training was done by video. And also the ARB had a special training with the MAI appraiser, John Traybold, and with their ARB attorney, Roy Armstrong. We did have another ARB member resign due to health issues. So right now we are currently at 31 members, but we are going to be able to manage this summer. And I did want, in front of y'all should have a blue folder. And inside you'll have the Appraisal Review Board survey. This is throughout the state of Texas. And I'm proud to say El Paso top 3. We have 346 surveys this year. So I did do a breakdown for El Paso surveys, what we received. So on the conduct of the Appraisal Review Board, I did combine the strongly agree and the agree answers together. So the property owners were asked about the conduct of the ARB if they were courteous. So 94.77% said yes. There was a difference from last year's 2019. It was a negative difference of 1.63. Property owners were asked if they were attentive. 92.52% said yes, 2019, negative difference of 1.68%. Knowledgeable, 87.5%. Positive increase of 3.1% from 2019. Organized, 91.83%. 2019, a negative difference of 0.57%. Fair, 82.92%. And that is a positive increase of 8.42% from last year's. So that was a great increase. And also, I provided a conduct of the Appraisal Review Board, a chart in each different category from 2016 to 2020. So you all can see the difference of changes throughout the years. Also, the part of the survey asked about the ARB hearing process. If the ARB hearing procedures, if they're instructive. So they were asked if they're instructive. So with the strongly agree and the agree answers combined, 90.4% said yes, and it was a negative difference of 1.6% from last year. Were the hearing procedures followed? 92.8% said yes, a negative difference of 1.3% from last year. Did they receive prompt service? 92%, a negative difference of minus 0.4. Did they have enough time to present their evidence? 85.9%, a negative difference of 1.5% from last year. Was their evidence considered thoughtfully? 80%, a 3.5 positive increase from last year. And was the protest determination stated clearly? 89.7%, a negative decrease of 0.3% last year. And also, again, there's another hearing process chart from 2016 to 2020. You can see the difference throughout the years. And based on the 2020 survey, the overall impression of the Appraisal Review Board, the majority was excellent. Good and excellent combined was at 84%. In 2019 was at 82%, so there was an increase of 2% from 2020 to 2019. And then the question was asked, did the ARB lower the property value? Out of 346 responses, 75.7% said yes, that their value was lowered. So the suggestions for the ARB coming to 2020, property owners were asked, what information would have been useful to you in deciding whether to protest? The majority responded they had a choice between sales or comparable property information. The majority chose, 40% chose comparable property information. That information would have been useful to them. Then also their property owners were asked, is it a good idea that they're able to communicate with appraisers before coming to the ARB? 75% agreed, yes, it was a great idea to be able to speak to the appraiser before going to the ARB. And then 93%, majority of the property owners, said they do like the idea that the appraisal district gives them an option how to receive the evidence that the district intends to use at their hearings. 56.2% of the property owners prefer to have enough time in their hearing to present their evidence rather than to have their hearing start on time. So their choice was, would you rather have your hearing start on time, or would you rather have enough time in your hearing? They chose enough time in their hearing to present their case. Property owners were also asked, how long do you think it takes for you to present your hearing, all your evidence, and for the Central Appraisal District? They had a choice between 10 to 15 minutes, less than 10 minutes, or more than 15 minutes. 22.68% said more than 15 minutes, 20.1% said less than 10 minutes, and 57.22% felt as 10 to 15 minutes was enough time to present their evidence. The Paso ARB does give 15 minutes for each of their hearings. And then also the property owners were asked, should the property owners be allowed to file their protest online, electronically? And 86% said yes. So the conclusion of this survey is the majority of the property owners responding to the survey agreed that they strongly agreed that the ARB members were courteous, attentive, knowledgeable, organized, and fair. And the majority of the property owners reported an excellent overall impression of the ARB and also from the hearing process from the Appraisal Review Board. And that the hearing procedures were informative, the ARB followed the procedures, the service was prompt, and that the property owners felt that they had a reasonable time to present their evidence, and that their evidence was considered thoughtfully, and that the protest determination was stated clearly. The majority of the property owners indicated that the ARB did lower their value, and most of them were first-time protesters, 66.9%. While the total number of property owner responses to the Comptroller ARB survey changed every year, there was a minor variance of the responses received. Also, I included a evaluation form for 2020. I have presented this to the board before, but I want to bring it to the new members. And what this is, usually the people that do the ARB survey are the people that are happy because their value got reduced.
Duh.
And the people that do the valuation forms are not very happy. So the courtesy, the excellent, good combined was at 11%. We were asked, did they pay attention to you? Excellent and good combined was 11.2%. Level of knowledge was at 0. Appeals in process was at 0. Explanations given were at 0. And time reasonable to complete the hearing was at 22.5. And the overall impression was at 0. I mean, they even say the new office hours, 87.5, but no opinion on there. But this is based on 9 comments. And we do have the chairman of the Appraisal Review Board, Sylvia Calderon, and the secretary, Philip Gonzalez, here. So if you all have any questions for them, they're right here. And if you all have any questions for me.
Any questions from the board?
No, sir.
At this time, there's no questions.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Next line item, Chief Appraiser's Report.
Board members, just a brief report for you. Number one, I'm sorry about the long meeting, but we had a lot of business since we had a workshop in April, and since we're not going to have a meeting in June, I wanted to make sure we covered everything that the board may have interest in. We did receive remember the property value study that we talked about beginning of the year, that we had 2 school districts that fell out of the confidence level? EPISD was at 0.9387 and San Lazario was at 0.90. Well, we submitted all of our evidence to the state comptrollers. They reviewed it, and we just received the results. And San Lazario went from 0.9052 to 0.973. Supposed to be at 95%, so that was a great increase. And then El Paso ISD went from 0.9387 to 0.9537. So we were able to get both school districts within the confidence level. So everybody's good to go for another year. They do it every 2 years, but they start like every other year to get going. I wanted to let everybody know, in case you haven't seen, we're all over the media. I've tried to get my face out there and talk to anybody who wants to listen. I've spoken with several different neighborhood groups, with several county commissioners, Mr. Stone and myself both. I have talked to the city council members, county commissioners, neighborhood groups, media. We kind of split it in half. I do the TVs and he does the newspapers. So we've been out there to let everybody know everything. We want them to know. We want them to understand. So I feel like we did a really good outreach this year with the public, and of course our ads in the radio and in the newspapers. Protest season, guys, we're going strong. The 17th of May, this past Monday, was the deadline for the majority of the notices that went out. And I'm estimating, I'm waiting for a count, about 1,000 people in and out of this office just in that one day. We're constantly busy. My staff was amazing. They stepped right up to the plate. I had people from other departments volunteering to help at the door. They just did a great job. Currently, we still haven't entered everything, but we have about 25,000 protests filed. Last year, we had 19,000. A year before, we had 22,000. So we do have more that need to be entered into the system. So we'll probably hit close that percentage or that number of about 30. He's saying it's going to be under 30. I'm saying it's going to be over 30. So we'll see who has to buy lunch. I wanted to let you know we've already been receiving comments from the public. We have evaluation forms for the employees also that the public can fill out. And at the end of the protest season, I'll be coming in with a fuller detailed report. But just to let you know, I mean, we do have those that are very unhappy. Their taxes are too high. Why are we setting it a market? They don't plan to sell. Why are they paying school taxes? They don't have children in school. You know, we do have those kind of negative, and we deal with those. We do, the ones that deal with the Appraisal Review Board, Sylvia Calderon, the chairperson, I give those to her. She researches them. We research them here. Ms. Carter researches them, and if we need to call the person, we do. But overall, the amount of positive far outweighs the negative evals that we've received so far. And some of the comments that we're saying is very attentive to detail, in person and over the phone, very pleasant, a clean building. Thank you very much for us being over on the sanitation. We're keeping it clean. Quick process, a wonderful experience from front desk forward. Great service, knowledgeable, sincere, caring, felt at ease, great attention, excellent job, patience and understanding. I mean, I've got a sheet that's on double-sided with these type of comments so much. My favorite one is, wish all government employees were as outstanding. To me, that's perfect. I just love to get that. So I just wanted to give you a little update on what we're receiving. And when we do receive the negatives between myself, Ms. Calderon, the chairman of the ARB, and Ms. Carter, we do address those. Preliminary roll did go out on time. It went out April 30th. We will continue to send updates. We're sending monthly updates to the taxing entities. Not the full roll, but Mr. Stone works on the numbers and upgrades those. We'll send them out the end of this month, 1st of June, and again, the end of June, 1st of July. And then, of course, is certified by July 25th. To let the board know, the governor did have orders about mask requirements. When the CDC stated you didn't have to wear masks, we continued to say, yes, you do. We deal with a lot of people in here, and so we said, yes, any visitors, any staff had to continue wearing masks. Well, the governor has now said, a government building, if you mandate a mask, you have a $1,000 a day fine. We are considered a government building because we work for the taxing entities and they pay into our budget. So starting Saturday, we will not require masks, will not mandate masks. We sent out an email to the staff. We are posting signs that say it is a personal option, but we are recommending, strongly recommending, the continued use of mask wearing, social distancing, and hand sanitizing to keep the public and staff safe. We sent out an email district-wide. We've spoken to the managers to talk to their staff that we want to keep this very civil. If somebody wants to wear a mask, that's their personal option, and we will stand behind them. If they do not want to wear a mask, that is their option, and we will stand behind them, and nobody will be chastised or belittled for one way or the other. That we're just going to deal with it that way and move on. We had 3 different options herein for our staff to be able to get the shots, twice with UMC and once with another service-related facility. So we've given 3 different opportunities for employees to have their shots. And I'm not sure, I won't ask who did, but I think a large percentage of our employees did have the vaccine. I'm not going to go that far to require it. I think there are personal reasons that I don't feel like we need to get into as to whether they have one or not. But I did want to let you know that starting Saturday, we are working Saturdays now. Starting June 5th, we'll be working Saturdays, will be open for the public and tax agents, anybody who has an appointment. If they don't have a Saturday appointment, then they won't come into the building. But anybody that has a Saturday appointment will be working starting June 5th, probably through the week before we certify in July. So that's my report. If anybody has any questions for me, I'd be happy to address them.
Questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I just wanted to thank Mr. Stone for coming to the Commissioners Court and presenting. And I know that the judge made us do a shorter presentation, and you were prepared to do something longer than what you had. Not sure why that happened, but you did a great job. I appreciate, just important information for everybody to hear. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Any other questions?
No, sir.
Okay, at this time, it's 6:45. We will go into executive session under the authority of Texas Government Code And we're back. Line item 14, discussion and possible action regarding previous listed item. At this time.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve what was discussed with our attorney in executive session concerning this and our taxpayer liaison.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Oh,
Go ahead.
Okay, Mr. Berg, I have a second from Mr. Berg. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you so much. At this time, Mr. Taylor has a few words for us. Go ahead, Mr.
Yes.
Taylor.
I'm leaving you guys. After about a year and a half, maybe real
No
close
longer.
to two,
Yeah.
being with the board. And it has been a enjoyable learning and training experience for me. I really enjoyed it. Now, I come from a military background, and I was able to be command sergeant major for quite some time. And when I left there, I came and I went into law enforcement. And then I went into mental health and mental retardation. And I directed a state program in mental health and mental retardation, the forensic psychiatric agency for the entire state. So that gave me a lot of experience with working with high-level staffs that govern the activities of many people, a lot of high-level people. But I would like to say, and I've told Mrs. Kilgore this several times, but I would like to say that her organization, I saw every time I was here, casually or business-wise, everything was in its place all the time. There was a place for it and a function for it. And her staff friendly function to assure that there was a place for everything and everything in its place. This has been a very effective and efficient staff working with all sorts of input. And they seem, during my tenure here, to be functioning very well and receiving in a friendly manner their job. And so I want to thank them for that learning and training. And I really hate to say goodbye, but I have not been elected. Now, I didn't get bumped out. I chose to get out. Pay some time, spend some time with my grands. Thanks a lot for the opportunity. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor, for those beautiful
Thank you.
comments. Okay. at this
Mr.
time-
Chair, may I comment?
Yes, go ahead, Lori.
I have got to say, Mr. Taylor, you're one in a million. I think I've probably been on this board the longest, and you have been a delight. You've brought wisdom and knowledge to our board. You've brought continuity and stick-to-itness to our board, and we all appreciate you deeply. Thank you for your service, and we're going to miss you. I could almost cry. We're going to miss you, and you've been real fun to sit next to all these years when we were sitting next to each other. You're a delight. Thank you, sir, for your service. And thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Taylor, I would like to say a few words. You were a very wise man. You brought a lot of knowledge, a lot of experience to this board, and I really hate to see you leave, but I know time is precious, and enjoy those grandkids. Thank you.
Mr. Taylor, thank you. I have to let the board know, he's been a great advocate with the public on our behalf.
You gonna take my picture down?
Yeah, we'll make sure you get it so you can give it to your grandboys. Give it to your grands, okay? We'll let you take, we'll send it. We'll make sure you get it.
All right,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah. He came in one year.
What about this?
He came in one year and brought his boys and had a picture taken.
Take this.
What
You can
about
take
this?
I'm sure we can arrange it.
We'll put it in the budget. You can have it.
Yeah, put it in the budget. You can have it. Yes, sir.
It's yours.
It's yours. Thank you so
You ought to
much for
have a little-
everything. We will probably have you come back because we're going to present you a plaque. We just
That's
didn't
what I
know
was
today
gonna
that you were
say,
going to
yeah.
drop this news on us. And so we'll make sure we have a plaque and invite you back
Thank you.
and present you. Maybe your grandkids can come with you.
Aw.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor, so much for your service to this board. It was greatly appreciated. We're going to miss you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any more comments from Mr. Taylor? At this time, we will adjourn, and I have 7:26. Do I have a motion?
Second.
Second.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, board
Thank you all. See
Thank
you
you for
in
everything.
August.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.